G'day, ZiggyD here, and welcome back for another video from the Path of Exile beta. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a look at the new networking mode, Deterministic Lockstep, the new mode that completely removes desync from Path of Exile. Now, for those of you guys who haven't really been following along with the beta too much, or have just been loosely keeping track of Path of Exile's development, this is one of two modes that will be available in Awakening. There's the previous predictive mode, which has seen many improvements, and then there is this new deterministic lockstep mode. Now, what deterministic lockstep does is it completely forces synchronization between the client and the server. ZiggyD have been working pretty hard and doing a complete pass on all skills and mob movements and mob attacks and things like that to make sure that they can get a system working where everything will be 100% synchronized. Now, when it comes to the internet, there's always some form of trade-off. Information still has to travel great distances to get to and from servers, and the trade-off for this is that there will be a delay based on your latency between when you tell your character to do something and when it actually happens. So when things on screen happen after you put your inputs into the game. So, depending on your latency, this may or may not be noticeable. Now, I'm playing on the Australian servers at the moment, and I have a very stable, around 33-ish latency. Between 30 and 35 is like the maximum of my sort of regular variance in the latency. So I have a very stable and I have a very low latency on the Australian servers, and I have no noticeable delay whatsoever. I've played a lot of games that have large delays, being from Australia, playing many games at 200 plus milliseconds latency, and I've played a lot of games that have sort of this delay, this input delay because of latency, and I feel absolutely none. So, it's pretty amazing to have no desync in my game, and then no actual delay, so basically no trade-off. So I'm gonna demonstrate this by just running through to Varla as we move through. I'll try and leap slam through doorways and do stuff that you would never normally do with predictive mode because of the risk of desyncing back into 2 rooms ago and into a pack and getting yourself killed. And we'll also finish up with a bit of a Varla fight at the end as well, that I might show off at higher latencies too. So if you have a low latency, I estimate under around 70 is where is around maybe 60 or 70 is probably where you're gonna start noticing a bit of a delay. You may be able to notice a bit of a delay earlier on too, depending on, I guess, how perceptive to these things you are or how sensitive to these things you are. But anywhere under like that 60 mark, you're gonna be completely removing desync for almost no trade-off. Now, this is still in beta development, obviously, so there are some bugs, there's some instance crashes and stuff associated with Lockstep at the moment, but we can assume that most of these things will be ironed out by the time the Awakening goes live. So as you can see, I'm just running through all of these skeletons. You would never normally do this on predictive mode in hardcore, because running through packs like this is a surefire way to get yourself desynced. But I know I can stop and type OS now, which would force synchronization if we were playing on predictive mode, and you'll notice that nothing happens, because it is completely in sync. There's nothing. My character is basically always where you'd expect them to be. I'm going to remove multi-strike from Vigilant Strike here, so I'm going to walk up and target one of these skeletons after running through this pack, and you can tell that it's always like completely reliable where my character is and that they actually hit the mob as well. Other things are like, you know, targeting a mob that's through a doorway, having your character run around and attack that mob. It happens completely reliably. There's no desync or anything associated with that, so it works pretty much perfectly. So I decided to wait until Deterministic Lockstep was implemented into the beta before playing a melee character. I knew that the really good beta experience or melee experience would be happening once Lockstep was in the game, once there was no desync to fight against as a melee character. As a melee character, it was always the worst for desync. You were not only fighting against enemy mobs and being up close and personal, taking more damage, but also just constant synchronization issues as well, making it difficult to target mobs, know exactly where you were, and to be able to kite and stutter step different enemy attacks and things like that. We're just nowhere near reliable enough with the previous predictive mode. So I have to say that with this new mode, melee is an absolute pleasure to play. I've been playing this Ice Crash Marauder, which is a bit of a slower moving character, but I have been doing plenty of leap slamming through doorways, and I've not had a single issue with Lockstep outside of some of the beta bugs that are being ironed out. I'm going to be playing probably a Reeve Whirling Blades character next, which will be a much faster character, so it'll be interesting to test on that as well to really feel the full impact of it. But it just feels perfect, guys. It's like it's pretty much everything. It's more than I anticipated, really. It's pretty much everything I dreamed out of a Lockstep mode like this. Now, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows though, because anyone who has either a high latency, so if you're sitting at 150-ish latency around there, you're going to start to get a noticeable delay, and that might be something you can get used to after playing for a while. And I mean, I've gotten used to playing plenty of games with 150, 200 latency, so it is possible. Being Australian, I get plenty of that, but for some of you guys, that might not be acceptable, and you may want to play on the previously improved predictive mode as well, as a bit of a tongue twister. The other thing to consider, though, is even if you have low latency, there's also a risk that you might not be able to use Deterministic Lockstep as well. I've talked to people that have low latency, but there's occasionally spikes. They get spikes up to, like, maybe they have 20 latency and they occasionally spike up to 80 every few seconds or once every minute or something like that. If you have kind of that sort of an unstable connection, or maybe just the connection's not very good and you sometimes like lose information between you and the server, then Lockstep mode will either hang up every now and then, or you will go from having no delay to the next click will have a delay, and it becomes quite erratic and variable. And having that lack of consistency makes Deterministic Lockstep quite unpleasant to play. So it's not going to work for everyone, but if you play with, you know, under 100 milliseconds latency, I estimate around 60-ish, maybe a bit under 60 is going to be the sweet spot for having no real feel of delay. If you have under 100 latency, or ZiggyD recommends like under 150 as like the max, then yeah, you should be able to enjoy Deterministic Lockstep as long as it is stable. Let's fight Varl. Varl's quite fun with Lockstep. In fact, Varl, after playing Path of Exile for quite a while, like, Varl was very scary when it was first implemented because of it took a while to get used to his mechanics and things like that, but after playing Path of Exile for a while, you become quite familiar with Varl's mechanics. The thing is, though, that there was always this aspect of fear with Varl that you would not be exactly where you thought you were, or that he would teleport Varl slam you, and that was always quite scary to deal with that particular piece of risk. But that is a complete non-issue with this new mode as well now. Hopefully I can encourage him to do some Varl slamming action here, and I'll show you exactly the sidestepping. Where are you going, Varl? He's going off for a little bit of a dance over there. Let's see if we can get him to go for a Varl slam. Come on, Varl, you know you want to. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. There you go. You can basically cross over through one of his legs, and you know that with certainty he is not going to Varl slam you. So with Lockstep mode, you really have no excuse for getting Varl slammed. I can't think of any scenario in which you would do that as a player who's knowledgeable about that mechanic and the dangers of it. So the new Lockstep mode, as long as you meet those requirements of latency and such, feels great. It's like a weight lifted off your shoulders when you're playing PoE. There's always this constant niggle in the back of your mind about how it was just always slightly annoying to play Path of Exile. It was worth it because the game is like so detailed and so in-depth and so addictive, but it was always this constant sort of like frustration in the back of your mind. That's gone, and it feels great to have that be gone. The thing is, though, that the full impacts of this Lockstep fix for Desync, I think are going to take a while to really be seen. There's a lot of things like giving yourself a wider berth on Flame Blasts, on Varl Slams, not pushing through packs when you're fighting them, like the way we've developed playing over quite some time now. It's going to take a while to break out of those habits. I mean, I still find myself mashing OOS whenever I go through a doorway these days. Just like these habits that I've developed to deal with Desync over, you know, the past 2 years are going to take a while to break ourselves out of, but people are going to be able to push harder. They're going to be able to do things with this certainty granted by this mode that they haven't been able to do before, like wiggle their way through packs, position precisely, use skills in different ways. A lot of these things kind of remain to be seen, the full impact that they'll have. We'll especially, I think, see some changes in the way people race as well. I think people, like top-end racers, were already pushing pretty much as hard as they could. There was just a bit of RNG on whether they would desync and die because of it. Now those players are going to have a much more consistent experience, and a lot of players who weren't pushing as hard as they could because they didn't like that RNG of the potential that they could desync back into a room and end up dying, they were playing a little more cautiously. Those racers are going to be able to kind of just let fly and go as fast as they can. So it's going to be really interesting to see like the long-term implications, and I think it's going to take like a couple of months for players to sort of develop new playstyles around a game that is completely in sync, around a game that is completely reliable. I'm pretty excited to see the changes that makes. The thing I'm most excited for, though, is that a lot of players who try Path of Exile are, you know, like a good percentage of players that give Path of Exile a go are really turned off by Desync. it takes quite a bit of practice and time to learn to play around desync. And once you do, it becomes less of an issue. Honestly, I've never really had a death I could strongly attribute to desync, and I've learned to play around it over time, and it became only a minor frustration. But to have it gone for newer players, that's going to be absolutely phenomenal for helping them to stay around in the game, and it might well help get a lot of people back into the game that quit as well, and that's pretty exciting for the growth of the game. So that's pretty much it for my desync report, guys. My deterministic lockstep report. It is brilliant, but if you guys can't play on Deterministic Lockstep, if you have, you know, higher latency, then there's a couple other things that might improve the game for you guys to keep in mind, so don't be disheartened. The first is that in the beta, they've added a whole bunch of extra servers. Let me show you guys here. You can see that there are multiple servers for locations that didn't exist before. I think there's a new US servers, there's a couple of new EU servers. So there might be a server that's located closer to you than servers were previously in the past. So you may be able to lower your latency down into being able to use deterministic lockstep, or your predictive mode might be a lot better. And in general, a lot of bugs have been found with predictive mode through the process of creating deterministic lockstep mode that have allowed them to improve it. So the previous game mode that everyone played on has gotten a lot better in the beta, and a lot of people have noticed that before lockstep was added, that hey, the beta is way more reliable. There's way less desync in the beta, and when it does desync, it's not quite as bad. Like it improved greatly. So even if you guys aren't able to use lockstep mode, there are still improvements coming away that you guys should have a more pleasant playing experience on the game. So anyway, guys, if you have any questions about lockstep mode, or you've been playing the beta and have your own comments to add, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. That's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.